Okay, there we go. All right. Hey everyone, this is our final class of 2025. We'll be continuing on in 2026. For like the next iteration of the class. We're wrapping up design foundations. This is our last design foundations class. All right, so anyways, we're going into your design career. So the entire purpose of things here at FDI is that we want to help you guys start your design careers, to get employment, to contribute to the video games industry. So final class, we want to focus specifically transitioning from design skills to your design career. Oh, it's actually a bit of an old slide, sorry. So going forwards, we're going to be continuing to develop the FDI community. I know this is our last class, but we're going to be continuing on there. Hey there, Samurai. Welcome to the class. We're going to be focusing on student employment outcomes. That's our big focus right now for FDI. So we did a really good job at teaching people design skills, getting them to learn the skills and ship games. Now we got to focus on that connection from that to employers. So that'll be my laser focus going forward. We're going to be developing public employment resources. That ties into our earlier element. So we've already got resume templates and interview guidelines and that kind of stuff, job hunt recommendations. Right now, I'm working on a generalized portfolio template based on feedback from employers. So I'll be rolling that out to the community. We're going to be going into a bit of a silent mode going forward as I kind of get nose to the grindstone on this, but things will still be active, but this will be my focus going forward. All right, so again, getting into design careers. So I want to go over this class where we're going over 5 things: your mindset as a design professional, your resume, your portfolio, how to run an interview, and then your career going forward. So for your designer mindset, as a designer, you really have to dedicate yourself to making things better. I know a lot of people, when they go into design, they think it's largely about, innovation or personal vision and this kind of stuff. Really, the job's pretty straightforward. It's just about making things better for the customer. You're solving customer-facing problems. This is the North Star of Shigeru Miyamoto and the North Star of Dieter Rams. For those of you who are perhaps new here, Dieter Rams was the design director for Braun back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. His design language has been the foundation for almost all consumer goods going forward. If you want to know what Apple's doing with their design, they're largely pulling from Dieter Rams' design fundamentals. Shigeru Miyamoto also pulls from Dieter Rams' design fundamentals. And Dieter Rams' design philosophy was design's about empathy. You're understanding what people's problems are and you're solving those problems. You aren't showing how smart you are. You aren't being super clever. You aren't pushing them to the latest technology. You're saying, look, I understand it's kind of frustrating to use a pocket calculator. Here's a pocket calculator that's just a little more approachable. And this is just the big mindset of design. Whenever I'm working on design work, I'm always looking at it. As a player going through this, what is the things I will not be enjoying and will not be liking about this? And then I fix those. So the thing is, a lot of that, be passionate about your customer. You want the stuff that you make to be the best part of the customer's day. And the only way you can do that is by focusing on the customer. If you're making it for yourself, you have now done just that. You have made it for yourself. If you make it for the customer, they'll know and they'll respond very positively to that, and you'll wind up with a better experience overall. You also got to be relentless in your quality. As you're focusing on your design, having to be customer oriented, you can't treat it like a checklist. You have to focus on it and try to understand it from all its different perspectives and facets and elements. Hey, Anxious, welcome to the class. So this is whenever I'm working on my design, I always keep in mind this concept of like being a jeweler and like looking at the experience from as many different perspectives as possible and trying to find out where all the little flaws are or the deficits or the issues and be like, well, like, you know what? as a customer, I may not really mind that grass is clipping through this artwork, but I'm really going to care about the fact that my weapon reload's got half a second of delay on it or something like that. It's looking at it and understanding all of the different elements and parts that are going to cause friction for the customer. And that's the stuff you really have to be focused on resolving as a designer. Another big thing is designing your spare time. I really enjoy just getting to design things all the time. I'm really liking the experience of working on this student portfolio. It's not even a student portfolio, it's just a general portfolio template. So I'm like, okay, what if you know nothing about web development? What if you're really experienced with web development? What if you're a technical designer? What if you are a level designer? What if you're more art-oriented? What if you're a narrative designer? What if you no longer have access to the assets that you've currently for the projects you've worked on? This is actually, like, I'm using the template myself. An issue I'm running into is like, man, like I worked on a lot of big projects and like there's no way that they're going to give me access to any of the raw materials of what I worked on those projects. But like I was so busy working on those, I just didn't have time to develop a personal portfolio because I was too busy working on professional stuff. So, okay, someone in my situation, I need a portfolio template that'll work for that as well. And I really love getting to do this kind of stuff. I found the portfolio to be a really interesting design challenge. And it's also about like trying to make it really elegant and lightweight, trying to make it flexible, trying to make it very low cost. I think, we're like, some of the tech decisions are like, we're having it entirely on Google Sites because Google Sites is a resource that's available to just about everyone for pretty much for free. And it's also there's a format that can also be transplanted over to other web development environments. I'm really liking it so far, but this is, I'm having fun designing this stuff in my spare time. And that's another thing, just always be designing. If it's going to be your career, it should be something something you eat and breathe. A designer should always be designing. So, here you go, design your spare time. Design things around your house. Design the interior of your car. Just figure out how to look at something from the perspective of someone else and make it great for them. Another element is have that mindset of always be asking, how do I make this more efficient? How do I make this more robust? Again, going back to my example of the portfolio, it's like, look at how can this cover the maximum range of design types, design skill levels, and how do I get that as efficient as possible so that this is something that you can get a portfolio together in like 2 to 3 days or something like that? What's the quickest way I can get this thing to happen and still be effective? Design competes on efficiency and robustness. You want to have the most efficient solution that solves the maximum number of customer-facing problems. Example from game design, Mario's Jump. Mario's Jump is a very simple mechanic, and it handles a huge number of gameplay problems. It can be used for puzzle solving, it can be used for navigation, it's a dexterity skill check, it also can be used as a weapon. That's a lot of stuff that Mario's Jump solves. Interesting element about Mario's Jump, I think it was the first time someone had thought to actually weaponize a character's jump, to use it as not only something as navigation, but also as a weapon for defeating enemies, making it more efficient and more robust. And now that's just become kind of the design standard for most platformers. It's a design decision that stood the test of time for, I think, 40 years at this point. Again, efficiency and robustness. Okay, so that's your design kind of mindset. Moving on. So you got your designer mindset. You know how to be thinking about the world in design terms. Next thing you want to be thinking about is your resume. So all employers require a resume. An interesting element, though, and this is something I just discovered a couple of days ago when talking with an employer, resumes are becoming less important than your portfolio now. This is something I've been hearing more and more about, largely from what I understand. a lot of AI resumes are floating around out there, and that has devalued the overall resume itself. So this is an interesting element going again into AI is if people do not put a lot of effort into something, that overall lowers its value, which is a problem with AI generated content. It is intrinsically less interesting. Just because I can write into ChatGPT, hey, make me a resume, does not mean I'm getting something on the other side that is of actual value to the customer that I give it to, e.g. the employer. Okay, so for your resume. So important thing, the resume is still important. Again, please write it yourself. You can use ChatGPT and AI for recommendations, just don't have it write your resume for you. So for your resume, you've got about 5 seconds to make an impression with a resume. So people, hiring managers do not read resumes, they scan them. They just quickly look over them. They got a stack of hundreds of these things and they're just going through them being like, you know, nope, 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 yep, nope, 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 yep. They're looking over the stuff very quickly because they got a lot to do. So you need to design your resume to make a strong impression in those 5 seconds for them not to say no. There we go. It's a double negative, but I think that's keep yourself out of the no pile, get yourself into the yes pile. So big thing is tailor your resume specifically for the job that you're applying for. This does mean you have to write a custom resume for every single job, and that's just part of the process. I know it's a bit of a pain in the butt, but it's super critical for this kind of stuff. If you go with a generic resume, the employers will see elements on the resume that do not pertain to the job, and they'll start thinking that you're just not a match for it. You know, if I've got experience doing mobile level design, I do not include that experience on my resume if I'm applying for like a AAA first-person shooter design role. It's just not relevant unless maybe they've got something in the job listing about trying to pull in mobile game design fundamentals, then maybe I'd include it. But if it's not, if whatever is on the resume has to be what the employer is looking for, that is in the job listing. What you want to do is look through that job listing and mirror back as much of that to the employer in your resume as you can. So actually an exercise I go through with people now is that we'll take the job listing off of the website, we will paste it into a Word document, and then we just start highlighting all the key phrases. After we've highlighted them, we'll then stack rank them about the ones that we feel are the most important, the ones we feel are the least important, and then we try to capture the top 5 of those most important phrases within the top third of the resume. Just so like, okay, if this job listing is really mentioning a lot about programming, then we mentioned programming a lot in that top third of the resumes to get it closely aligned with what the employer is looking for. Closely aligned there, that's what I was going for. Okay. So you also need to focus your experience on value delivered. It's not about I did my job. Like your resume should be showing that you've gone above and beyond and delivered exceptional value. And honestly, just about everyone does this. But like, you know, if you had, you know, if you've ever beaten a deadline or exceeded expectations or gone the extra mile to include additional functionality, put that stuff in your resume to say, hey, I was responsible for level design on this project. And then while I was working on that, I got my stuff done, you know, in half the time as anyone else did, and I helped other people on their work as well. You want to be showing the employer not what you did, but the exceptional value that you brought in your job. And like there is a bit of a cheat here. You could always just compare it to like, well, if no one was doing the job, then I delivered a lot of value. That's a bit of a stretch, but like I guess what I'm trying to say here is overall your language you want to have is about value that you delivered as opposed to just mechanically what you did. If you know, as an employer, if I say, yeah, they hired you as a level designer and you designed the levels, that's not a very exciting pitch. If I see that you designed the levels, you know, to a higher quality level, to a higher quality standard, or that you led an initiative to test multiplayer or something like that, then I become a lot more interested in bringing you onto my team. So big things to focus on is generally customer experience improvements. You made it better for the end user beyond your targets. Cost reductions, I was able to get this done quicker and more efficiently, or overall sales growth. Those are the three things that employers are most interested in. If you can prove that, hey, I did something and that increased our sales growth, that is great. Though actually one of the things with design, it's very difficult to cause a direct correlation between design improvements and sales growth, simply because design happens so early in the pipeline. It can be, sales growth is mostly driven by marketing and advertising. So it can be a little tricky with design. But if you can make that connection, that is great. Another important thing is don't include soft qualifications. I always hate this when I'm looking over someone's resume and they're like, I was a hard worker, I was team-oriented, I'm a passionate gamer. None of that stuff matters. Like, it matters, but like that's a value in the interview. On the resume, it looks like you're just padding things out. You come across like a used car salesman. You know, it's like when people put down self-starter or that kind of stuff. It's like, these are really qualifications anyone could put on their resume. It's very easy for anyone to claim these things. And this is, again, why this stuff's important. You have to show your actual deliverables, the actual material goods that you were able to accomplish while working the job. Just saying that you're friendly and hardworking, it's too easy. You know, anyone can say that on the resume. So as a result, it does not have value on a resume. So next thing, portfolios. So as I said, portfolios are becoming incredibly important. This feels like it's been a bit of a pivot. I have never needed a portfolio before in my career, nor do I know any other designers who've needed portfolios. Recently, when talking to employers, they're like, well, first thing we want to see now is your portfolio. So getting into portfolios, because these are becoming apparently very important right now. So, important thing for portfolio, you've got to show what you've actually done. So the resume is kind of like a receipt. Portfolio is the actual tangible good of what you've delivered. And the great thing about portfolio is you have a lot more time and a lot more space to go into detail. If they're looking at your portfolio, they will be scanning it a bit. They will be scanning it, but not as much as they do with a resume. They'll look at the resume and say, looks pretty good. Let's check the portfolio. They've now opted in. The portfolio, you've got a bit more of their attention. You can take a bit more time with them, or a lot more time. Generally, I recommend designing portfolios that they can kind of get the information quickly, and the additional information is there if they really want to dive in. So, important thing with portfolio is you want to have it oriented towards what you've actually physically delivered. So, when organizing your information, you want to allow employers to find the relevant work that they're looking for. So, it's an important thing with portfolios is I find the most efficient way of organizing them is by the professional discipline and then sub-discipline and then by project. I know a lot of people organize their portfolios by project. That's problematic because remember, I'm looking at your portfolio as a hiring manager. I want to find a kick-ass narrative designer. If you show me 5 projects and 3 you did level design on and 2 you did narrative design on, if I'm clicking through on a project and be like, okay, this murder mystery project looks interesting, click on it. Okay, oh wait, level design. Click on another one, another level design project, and I'm like, well, fuck, maybe they're not a narrative designer. Maybe they're more of a level designer. So this is why I recommend look at employers are looking at your portfolio for a specific skill. Organize your portfolio by that skill. That does mean you're going to have redundant projects on there. That's fine because they'll be drilling in. So like for me, I've worked on a project called Furious Seas. It was a VR pirate naval combat game. I've got a level design page for Furious Seas. I've got a technical design page for Furious Seas. They're separate pages because I know they're either looking at me as a level designer or as a technical designer. Very rare will they want to look at both level design and technical design, though I do have an additional recommendation for that specific outcome that I'll get into in a few slides. So when putting together your portfolio, organize it by discipline, sub-discipline if needed, and then by project. And then I would put down if that project was personal or professional. So like, for example, discipline would be, for me, I do design leadership and I also do executive leadership. Those are separate tabs in my portfolio. So you go to design, and then I've got level design, gameplay design, and technical design. Those are my sub-disciplines. Once you click on the sub-discipline, then you see a list of projects. Because I know as an employer, they'll be looking for a level designer. So they'll go to design, level design. That's what Matt did level design for. And then when they click on the project, they will see just the level design work. Another important thing is regarding the portfolio is, I'd say, show the sizzle, then show the work. I like to open my project pages by showing the project at its best, high resolution finished screenshots, marketing screenshots, that kind of stuff. And then I dive into the actual technical elements of what I did. So I'm assuming perhaps you're not familiar with the project I've worked on. So I show them, hey, for Furious Seas, this was the awesome gameplay experience we delivered with, great marketing screenshots. And then I'm like, and now here's the actual technical elements of went into this. So I recommend showing your project pages by showing your shipped works under the best light, marketing promos, official screenshots, etc. Then you want to show your technical elements. So when you're showing your technical work, explain what it is the person's looking at. Like, don't just show marketing screenshots and then screenshots of the editor. For example, here with our example from Uncharted, it would be like, look at this level design has got these elements to it. I try to hit these 3 main elements of the player experience. So detail what they're looking at within those technical, within the technical breakdown of your work. And it's really important that you actually show your work. Don't just show them marketing screenshots, because then it's just, your portfolio is just a collection of meaningless screenshots. So you want to be showing stuff from both in-game and from within the editor. So another thing I'd recommend is going the extra mile and including a private employer-specific page. So if I'm applying for a job and I know that they're really interested in, it's a level design job that's very focused on third-person platforming, and I've got level design work that's third-person platforming in my portfolio. I've also got level design work that's real-time strategy game. Excuse me. I would make a private page that just has the relevant experience from the portfolio. I'd put the company, name at the top. This is my Ubisoft level design portfolio. And then include all of the projects and just the project that Ubisoft is interested in, or Naughty Dog, or Rocksteady, or what have you. To just take your existing content, reorganize it, just copy and paste it, and include that. So include that within a private unlisted page, and then so ensure that that page is not available in the main flow, because nothing will bother an employer more than seeing a list of all the other companies that you're applying for. That makes them feel less special. So I'll admit, there is a bit of a navigational issue there of like them getting back to their customized employer interface. But I still think it's that additional friction is outweighed by you showing that this job was important enough to you that you actually made a customized portfolio specifically for that employer. It helps employers feel special, and it'll help them find the specific info that they're looking for. So a couple additional notes regarding your portfolio. Keep content visual with light text. Again, everyone likes to think that the employer is going to sit down and carefully read through the resume, read through the portfolio. They don't. They're busy. They've got a lot of things to do. So generally, just keeping it visual, and they can scan it, look over it, get a good understanding of it. If they got to be hunting for information, that's a problem. If there's mountains of paragraphs and that kind of stuff. That's a problem. I'd say even if you've got a narrative design portfolio, have them opt into the rating. If you're working on a epic RPG and you got your portfolio page for the epic RPG, make it very clear when they're going to be looking at a writing sample. Don't, even as a narrative designer, I would recommend against having blocks and blocks of text there. You want to have the blocks of text there when they click to opt into reading the blocks of text. So, and also show your process as much as possible. Like for a level designer, show like those marketing screenshots, and then you want to show initial level design sketch. And then that went into a series of Trello tasks. And then that became a gray box. And then that gray box became a 3D render by working with the art team. And just show all those steps, show that entire process, show that you understand the entire process from beginning to end. Yes, you don't want to be info dumping. Okay. So moving on, next part is the interview. So this is the critical juncture. This is where you get the job. So important thing for an interview is, can they see you on the team? This is the thing. When we've talked with hiring managers, it is even if you don't have the specific skills they're looking for, they want to know if they can see that you're able to get those skills and if you're going to be a good fit for the team overall. So, important thing is you have to show that you can understand their customers and understand those customers' problems. It's like all employers have got customers, at least you'd hope so. All employers have customers, and them solving their customer problems is the key thing that they're focused on. So overall, you want to be able to show that you are also focused on those customers' problems. You want to show that you are, by showing that, you will show that you're aligned with the overall goals of the employer. It's to say, look, I understand narrative design, and I understand when players are playing narrative design, in particular, your players, when they're playing narrative design, they're interested in this stuff, they're not interested in this stuff. This is how I'd approach it. This is overall how I'd solve those problems, as opposed to this is how I do narrative design at this other company, on this other project. It is very much about this company, their customers, those customers' problems. Another big thing is be focused on the team. Generally, in an interview, you want to be using the word we more often than the word I. To say, if you work to say, well, I did this, it would be like, well, we, the team, did this. I was responsible for this element of the team's work, but this is overall a team engagement. I know when I've been in an interview or interviewing someone and they have been too focused on themselves, that's usually a red flag, because just about every company is going to put you within a team environment. They need you working with a team. And if you can't do that, then that's going to be a lot of friction going forward, and that's going to be a red flag for an employer. Another important thing is to take responsibility. Even if you've screwed up on something, that's fine. Everyone screws up. Just be like, man, this is embarrassing, but there's this time that I was working on all this stuff. I used the wrong file naming. It was a bit of a shit show. Really sucked. I fixed it. I did this. In the future, I'm going to be doing this to make sure that that never happens again. It might sound counterintuitive. It can actually be good in an interview to show humility and to talk about times that you've screwed up or times that you've made a mistake. Just don't stop the story there. Then show how you fixed it, how you took responsibility, and what you learned from it. Don't be sitting there being like, yeah, I screwed up all the file naming because their file naming standards were garbage. It's like, no, that's not bad. Be like, I screwed up the file naming because I misunderstood it. I was keen to start in the project, so I just went ahead. I didn't understand that I had named the stuff incorrectly. Didn't discover that for 2 months later. When it did, I worked some late nights. I got it fixed. I wrote a note to myself at my desk reminding me what the file naming convention is. And in the future, I get all my stuff vetted by the tech team to ensure I'm going through all these things. That is a far better approach overall. And it's also, it's another, you know, again, when I've been interviewing people and I found that they will not admit to they will not be mentioning times that they've made mistakes. When I pressure them on it, what I found sometimes is they'll be like, oh, well, like, you know, I'm like, well, like, tell me a specific mistake you made. And they're like, well, I can't really think of a mistake. I'm like, well, I need you to come up with something. And say, well, one time this thing fucked up. And I'll be like, okay, so tell me about that. They're like, well, it's because of this guy over here. And I'm like, well, I think that's not the answer I was hoping for. Because if your response to problems is pointing fingers, I'm just thinking about, okay, if there's an issue on the team, is your response going to be to accuse other team members of making mistakes? Because if it is, I can't have you on the team. That's a destructive team member then. So again, take responsibility. And another important thing is, as you're interviewing, illustrate how you would solve the specific problems of your employer. So it's, you know, I have to show the tangible elements of my skills applied to solving their problems. So it's like, okay, well, they've got, like, you know, we're trying to figure out how to, you know, what would it be? We're trying to figure out how to make our game more accessible overall. And be like, okay, cool. So if I was to be doing that right now with your customers, I know that they've got a lot of experience with game genre X. And these are the control standards of game genre X. So I'd start pulling a bit of that into there. I provide that as a context. I would then overall harmonize these elements over here. I would nest this within that. I'd fix this over here. I'd streamline this. We could remove this element over here because now that we've done all this, these different gameplay systems are now redundant. B, showing the employer how it is that you would be solving their problems overall. You know, allow them to, so they can be thinking about, oh, okay, so now I know how this person is going to be approaching the work and what their overall mental process is. It can be more important to be showing this than to be able to show specific technical skills. At least I think in a good interview, that's generally how they can be oriented. I know some interviews, they will lean very heavily into technical skills, but I've always got hesitancy about that approach because technology changes, and just because someone knows how to solve a technical problem yesterday does not mean they can solve the technical problems of tomorrow. Some people will just hyperfixate on a specific solution and a specific technical solution, and they have a hard time reframing that within new technology. If you know how to solve it in Unreal, but now we've had to pivot over to Unity, if I'm just focused on a technical solution, I can look at Unity and say, well, I don't know how to do anything. As opposed to someone who's actually actively thinking through how to solve problems. Okay, so moving on over to the design career. So you've did a great resume, awesome portfolio, you nailed the interview, you got an offer, you signed on the dotted line. So now you got to start your design career. And hopefully this will be a career that lasts you for several years. So again, with the mindset, as a designer, you're the customer experience champion. You really have to be focused on that overall customer experience. This is something in the games industry that still, I think, is really lacking. I still talk with a lot of executives and they'll be like, well, you know, we've got all of these different technical elements, we've got these features, and when you ask them, it's like, well, who actually wants this? And they're like, well, we checked all the boxes, so if they don't want it, the customer's wrong, which I always despair when I hear. It's like, and if, as design, your job is to advocate for the customer experience. And again, this is the thing, like with, you know, with any good designer, any good artist, they are focused on the person who is consuming the work, not their own needs. Now, you certainly use your perspective as a starting point and as a reference point, but also as I'm, you know, it's, if I'm, how was it to say, like, if I'm telling a story about fathers, I tell the story about the customer's father, using my father as a point of reference so I can approach it from authenticity. If the story is exclusively about my father, then that's not of interest to the customer. If it's about their father, then that's intrinsically interesting. You have to make, during your career, you have to make this about the customer and the customer experience. So your focus is largely on solving customer problems. I always like to think of this as being kind of like, you know, I have this image here of an EMT. But that's actually kind of how I view my job, is that we'll do a play test and then like customers won't understand like how to open a menu, or they'll keep entering the wrong location while they're navigating. And I'm like, oh my God, everyone, the end of the play test. Okay, did we see this problem here? Did we see this problem here? Did we see this problem here? How do we solve those customer problems? And let's get on that ASAP, because I don't want those problems here for the next play test. Another thing is also being able to work within your budget. Take a budget as a designer, take your budget as a compliment. A tight budget is saying you know how to do this stuff and you know how to do it very effectively. So I would really recommend that. It's like, you know, again, it's like being a chef. I have to work with the ingredients I have, not the ingredients I wish I had. And this is the thing, if any of you have ever worked in a kitchen, sometimes those ingredients don't arrive or they've spoiled, at which point a good chef will still figure out how to make a fantastic meal with the ingredients that they have. It's as a designer, like perhaps the tech doesn't come together, perhaps deadlines slip, or perhaps deadlines get pulled in, perhaps assets aren't ready when you need them to be, or some other issue, or perhaps a publisher has changed their mind on something. You have to be able to work within those limitations. And I'd also would strongly recommend understanding the entire design discipline. Don't just look at game design, look at design as a whole. You know, architecture, fashion design, event design, industrial design, interface design, all this stuff. All this is design. The more you understand about all these different design elements, the more that you will be better as a game designer, because you will understand more of design as a whole. I have actually, in a lot of my design discussions now, is that we'll actually talk about fashion design, or the design of live events or sporting events. Like the number of times that we've had a design problem and been like, well, you know, when someone's playing football, they actually have resolved this issue already by some very simple social negotiations. You know, and it's like look at like a lot of the problems you face as a video game designer are not new problems. These are design problems that a lot of other industries have faced and have solved. It's really easy to just like, once you know those solutions, you can just pull those solutions in from other design industries and apply them to game design. It's fine. It'll make you a much more efficient and effective designer. And last thing is just focus on getting better every day. Read, study, research other design disciplines, challenge yourself to always be designing something. You know, if it's the layout of a room you're in or your desk, you know, just focus on designing stuff. Like I've got, last year I went on a whole entire thing of designing custom fixtures and stuff for different elements of my house. Like it was a lot of fun just being like, okay, I got $20 and I have to figure out how to hang this specific object off of the ceiling, and it's got to look, you know, streamlined, and it has to be visually appealing. It's got to be easy to fix and easy to, you know, all these kind of things, and just spend some time drawing on paper and just designing it. It was great. And just that's the thing. As a designer, first focus on getting better every single day. And of course, the key design skill. The most important thing, if there's one thing I can teach you, it is overall elegance, simplicity, it's clarity. If you understand clarity, again, the Bic Crystal Pen, my go-to for design. This is still one of the best designed objects in history. It's right up there with, like, you know, the wheel or the hammer. This is one of the most successful designs. This thing sells billions of units a year. It costs less than 2 cents to make. It is so effective. When they started making this actually increased literacy rates around the world because it improved people's access to be able to write. Because it was so efficient. It had a lot of clarity about what it is. If I've got clarity about the experience and I'm trying to do, I can become much more effective as a designer. If I'm just throwing, thrashing around trying to find something, then I just, I'm inefficient and I just wind up being tired at the end. This is, again, another thing I work on with my teams. I'm working as a design consultant is we sit down and say, okay, what is the exact experience we're after? What's a specific customer we're after? What's the specific hardware that we're targeting? That answers a lot of problems for us. So, though with clarity, I would also argue it has to be guided by empathy. So I know I really like clarity and empathy are super important. They're linked tightly together. If I've got clarity without empathy, then I'll end up making something very efficiently, likely for myself, because if I'm not making it for something else, I will wind up making it for myself, which is just intrinsically uninteresting for someone else. If I have got empathy but don't have clarity, I will be working very inefficiently as I'm trying to make it for someone else. You've got to have both of these things. And it does take a lot of work to get there, but you do get there. Like, the reason why a lot of people don't do this is because it takes a lot of work. It's also like it's one of those things that as you start your design career, you will continually be frustrated by the fact that a lot of people just do not want simple designs. The customer wants them, but I've run into so many employers and they're like, oh, well, why don't we just copy this? Why don't we just add all this additional elements to it? Well, that's not what I'd want to play. And I'm like, yeah, but we're not making it for you, are we? Like, if we are, this is the problematic company, And this will be I even know people like that were my bosses and have got more decades of experience than I do, and they still run into this problem of like, look at having to explain a simple design to someone is so challenging. I'm going to pitch a simple design to someone is so challenging. And it takes a lot of work to get there. Like, this is, at the start of your career, you will not fully understand this. And then as you get more experience, this will start to dawn on you. And this is one of the reasons I want to be talking about this at the start, is just to plant those seeds so you can come to that realization sooner. So this is the thing, it's really not the standard in video games still. I have talked to so many developers about the fact that video games still have a rather antagonistic relationship with their customers. And there's a subset of gamers that actually appreciate like the fact that there's a lot of technical requirement and mastery that's needed to get through an experience. But far more people are just bouncing off. They're just like, this is kind of frustrating and confusing. Maybe I'm just not interested in gaming. And they're leaving and going off to do something else. They're going on TikTok. They're watching Netflix. They're going outside, touching grass. God forbid. I'm kidding. I think this is one of the biggest issues we've gotten as an industry overall, is that we really still are too focused on what's worked in the past, and we're not willing to look forwards and understand, hey, all the people who aren't playing video games, let's figure out what it is that they want. Let's work on this from a perspective of empathy and clarity, and make this make games that are so great everyone loves them, as opposed to just the current hardcore gaming population of 220 million that we currently have. So but this should be the standard, because this is what a lot of very successful games have really embraced. It's something like Minecraft and Tetris, very simple, very elegant. Counter-Strike, it does not push anything really hard technically. Counter-Strike runs on just about every computer that's out there. Same thing with Minecraft. Same thing with Balatro. Really easy just for people to sit down and play and get engaged. These are games that attempted to meet the customer where they're at. So that wraps everything up. That's the last slide of the last class of Design Foundations 2025. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, Nadine, I'll look for those questions in Discord. Anyone else? Okay. I think if we're all good, we're gonna, oh, here we go. No problem. Thank you, Nadine. It was great having you here in the class as well. All right, I think we're gonna wrap it up there then. I will actually I won't catch you guys later. Come join us in the Discord. We're gonna still be active there, but I think I have as a beginner. So Anxious, do you have a question? Anxious?